welcome to Damnation Versus. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm very well.
Good. It's well, Happy New Year, I suppose. You're the first guest for 2021. So thanks very much for coming on. How are you in general? How are things? Where are you based, in Berlin at the moment?
I'm in Berlin, yes. Well, it's just been our first week of getting back to work with Pelagic, with the label after the holidays, which always means there's lots of work piled up. And this year, it was really more than the previous years. So we've had a lot to catch up with. And now we're still just trying to get back to 0.0, basically. So it's been a very busy week, but nice to have a couple of days off during the holidays for all of us. So that was really cool.
Good. Well, most of the listeners will know you as the guitarist and founding member of the Ocean. Probably seen you a bunch of times at Damnation and tours in the UK playing with the Ocean. But you're the first guest that I've had that has any sort of involvement with a record label. So we'll start with Pelagic, and we'll take it from there. So tell me a wee bit about how it came to be that you're involved in a record label, and then we'll get through the artists and so on.
Well, it all started with just me wanting to repress an older Ocean record, really, back in 2009. And back then we were signed with Metal Blade Records, which we still are, as a matter of fact. They release our albums digitally, and we just do the vinyl with Pelagic. And I asked them back then, and they didn't want to do it. And Andreas told me, why don't you do it yourself? And that's how it all started. So I ended up pressing a bunch of Ocean CDs and got a distribution deal with SPV, which went into bankruptcy half a year later. And I had my CDs scattered all across Europe. So that was one of the first experiences with the label. But I enjoyed it. And then there was this other small Swiss band that nobody will probably know, but they were actually really awesome, called Nebra. And that was my second release. I just wanted to let them be heard somehow, and so I released that. That was a dramatic financial failure, but I learned my lesson. And then the third release was Goddess and Astronauts, All is Violent, All is Bright, and that did well. And by that time I really enjoyed that, and I've kind of always enjoyed different aspects of music, not just playing guitar in a band, which is obviously great.
Losing you a wee bit there, Robin. I don't know if your signal's starting to go out. Can you hear me okay?
The reason that got the whole thing, it just all happened slowly at the beginning. I mean, 2009, we did 3 releases. Now we're at number 170 this year. So a lot has happened since then. But it all just gradually grew and started becoming more important. And it also allowed me to do things that otherwise simply wouldn't have been possible with regards to packaging, especially for Ocean Records. We've done a lot of crazy stuff with acrylic box sets, and the last record came with a wooden box and authentic fossils from 450 million years ago. And like all these things obviously involve a lot of work and time and also money that goes into it. And that's only possible if you are in control yourself, I think. And so having my own label allowed me to do all this crazy stuff. And that's how it all started, basically.
Yeah. So you've got a fantastic selection of bands there. You've got the biggest hitters in the scene, including like Cult Luna and Envy and Mono. And then, as you say, you've got some of the smaller bands. So how do you build these? Do they come to you? Do you go to them? Is it a mixture of both? How do you, when you're a record label executive, how do you get your bands involved?
Well, mostly it's through bands and contacts we already have. Like we find bands that we want to work with because we love them, and we think that we could get involved, and so we approach them. We don't really listen to demos much anymore. There was a time when I used to, but we don't really have time for that, and there's so much coming, and most of it is just not so good. So it's usually bands we already know, we have seen live, or that someone recommended to us that is also involved with music and that we trust. Very rarely we sign a band because of a demo that we get. It did happen with Low from Australia, for example, but all of the recent bands were bands that we found, basically. And how do we find them? Well, yeah, through recommendations, through seeing them live, through tours that they have done with other bands, watching them perform at festivals like Damnation or Roadburn, you know, and just being blown away. That's really all there is to it. And yeah, it's right now our release schedule for this year is entirely full until November already. So we have a lot coming up, and right now we have to make like we have to think twice if we really want to release a record, even when it's really good and when everybody in the team says fuck yes, let's do that. Yeah. Just because the slots are limited and you're gonna start hurting yourself PR wise if you release too much in the same month, you know, because people just won't listen anymore at one point. So we have to narrow it down to like 2 releases per month is what we're doing now, and I don't really want to go past that at this point, because I think it would be basically it would entail hurting ourselves if we did more than that. So we have to choose very carefully.
Okay, and so what sort of influence do you have in that? You've got bands, big bands, small bands, and you've got these great records and they're coming out. What do you sit down and have a conversation with the bands and the band's manager and say, listen guys, if you're forcing us to try and get out April, it's going to go out with another 3 or 4 releases, but we can go for June and we can really give you all the attention? Is that what happens, and what influence do you have in that?
Yeah, of course, the time of the year is quite important for releasing records. In Europe, we have like the summer is just not a time when it's good to release records. At least that's what it used to be pre-corona. Now the world is a weird, fucked up place, and everything is different now. So things are not going as they used to or by the books anymore. But you know, it used to be a case where in the summer you shouldn't release a record in Europe because everyone's on vacation and people are not up for it. And there's certain key periods. It's the same with touring, really. Like the spring, the fall are always super busy with shows, and kind of the same with releasing records. So when you have a small band, obviously you want to avoid the peak seasons where everybody's releasing, just because the releases might get drowned by, like, you know, high name releases of other labels. So with that in mind, sometimes it's good to go into the periods that are a bit less busy. And we have been doing that. We have been releasing records in August last year, which like 2-3 years ago would have been inconceivable. And it worked well, actually. You know, you get more attention then because there's less competition, and just the whole thing is less saturated as it usually is. So right now we're kind of releasing 2 records a month throughout the whole year. In December and January, it's usually a bit less, like usually 1 record, or it's reissues where you don't depend so much on press and promotion. But apart from that, we're pretty much consistently releasing 2 new records per month throughout the year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you say that. Like, one thing I've always had not a bee in my bonnet about, but I've never found evidence of it, is things that happened 15, 20 years ago, and why touring schedules would need to work like that, and why album releases would need to work like that, because you'd be trying to get into the Curating and Metal Hammer and Terrorizer and all the European publications, and where people go to shows and where people won't go to shows. I've never paid much attention to that, not as a record label member of staff, but as a promoter. Like, if I was to speak to a promoter that was promoting metal shows 20 years ago and say, make sure you're getting a band who's releasing an album, because that's when all the press is going to happen, that's when you're going to get all the PR. But I've never seen any evidence of that at all. I mean, and I believe because the PR that might have existed 15 years ago is no longer there. The magazines they're not printed, or they don't have the same reach online. And now all the bands have got such... If a band's very good at it, they can have such a good online presence themselves. So is that your experience now, that you're saying a band can release an album or let an album drop in August, which maybe 20 years ago would have been career suicide, is now you can make a success of it because it just takes a couple of people with really great online profiles, be it the record label or the band themselves, and you can really make a good push at it?
Well, in theory, yes, but in practice, it's not that easy, because it also, the fact that it has gotten a lot easier to release records yourselves and do promotion yourself also means that everyone is doing it, and the market is just so saturated in every regard, in every like aspect, in every scene of metal, you know. So yes, potentially you have a huge audience, but to reach that, isn't always that easy, you know. And so of course we carefully evaluate timing and outlets as well. You're absolutely right when you say that traditional press has become less important. Most of the print magazines have simply disappeared, especially in the US. There's almost nothing left. In Europe, there are still a couple that are coping and doing well. But I also, like, when I talk to my friends, and like, I know very few people that still get new music recommendations through magazines like we used to in the 90s, you know, like when we were reading, we had a subscription with a magazine, or we were buying fanzines at hardcore shows, and that's how you found out about new bands. That's obviously not the case anymore. You find them online through social media, through your friends, or sometimes on tour when you see a band that you weren't aware of before support another band, you know, that obviously still happens. And so that means that traditional promotion has lost importance. It's true. It's still, you still need to do it, because it's important in different ways. I think there's an older crowd that still reads these magazines, but also just to have like quotable content that you can use for your own social media promotion. You know, you need to have someone say certain things about a band for other people to listen to it. You know, it's stupid, but it's like that. So it's a mix of traditional PR and new approaches to PR, which is also involving like people with bigger Instagram following, so-called influencers, although this is a really fucking shitty term, but you know, people that share and reach an audience of non-professionals through their you know, their private accounts. And most traditional PR agencies, they're not really prepared for that. So it's difficult, and also a challenge that we face every day, how to serve the traditional media, but also to not just rely on that, but to find new approaches to reach an audience, you know. And a lot of that works with quality video content, which still is very expensive to produce. So a lot of bands are struggling with that. And that's also a factor when I consider signing a new band. It's not, I would love to say it's just that the music has to be great. Obviously, that is a prerequisite, but even if that is the case, that's not everything. It's also important to have a good setup and a good team and people behind it that are not just relying on a label to do all the work for them, but that can produce good quality content themselves, that can make cool video clips, or, you know, or editing and take care of artwork and these types of things. And all that is also very important when it comes to releasing a record these days. We cannot do everything for the bands that we work with. We also need them to cooperate, obviously, and to, you know, to do some things on their own. And when you're just sitting there and you're constantly like nagging someone about delivering stuff to you, that I also don't feel that this is our job. So this is also things that go into the considerations when working with a new artist. Like, is there a booking agency behind it? Is it a band that stands on their own feet, you know, that delivers you stuff to work with? And that's quite important.
That's another bit of overlapping that I would say that rings true with me and the promoting side of things. Is there's no point in the world just saying to me, I'll book this band for Damnation because they're the greatest post-rock or hardcore or death metal band in the world. If that band is either completely unknown or will do nothing to promote the show, because there's only so much. Damnation's got a good reputation now that if you put a band on, people will go check them out. But it's not just about the festival, whereas if you've got a band who's also good, but you know that for 9 months they're going to hammer the promotion and they're going to make sure that people come and see them, that's exactly what the festival wants, because they want packed rooms and for people. So I completely understand it. Just being a great band or being a great musician just isn't enough when there's so many, and in the 60 artists that you represent alone. I mean, how do you even break through the noise in the 60 artists that just you're dealing with your record label? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's very, very similar, a very similar scenario there. And of course, we also make use of the means that we have by already having an audience to, you know, give a chance to new bands that don't have that audience yet. And that's a beautiful thing. That's how it should be, whether you're running a festival and you're giving a slot to a band that you just think are amazing, although nobody knows them yet. Put them in front of an audience and see how they deal with it. And if they convince them, things will happen. This, of course, we have that ability as well as a record label. And, you know, also when you're when you're playing in a band that's going out on tour and choosing support bands, then you can also do that. And this is obviously where the Ocean and Pelagic is also linked, because when we go out on tour with the Ocean, we of course carefully think who we want to take out as supports, and a lot of times it ends up being Pelagic bands.
Yes, I'm going to get to that. We're going to talk about the Ocean and those tours, and I do want to ask you about how you build those packages, because they're very cleverly put together. But before that, I'm going to round off things with the record label itself. You hear at the top end of the tree with the major labels, artists who fall out with a label, and then it's a sort of fight about the ownership of the music or try to buy their music back. Well, my understanding from the outside looking in would be, well, you need to have some sort of ownership of the music, or it wouldn't be worth the investment. If somebody could just take it back and then go down the street and then print off their own 500 LPs after you've put all the promotion in, then what would be the point? The risk is too high. But so how does it work for a guy, as you say, that done it out his own basement, where I doubt there was like lawyers involved and lots of contracts? How have you managed to get through that sort of minefield of the ownership of the music and the relationship with the bands who write it?
I started working with contracts quite early. A lot of other people who got into the label side of things that way, they didn't want to do that because they thought you're only doing business with friends and it's not necessary to have contracts. And most of the time, those people face plant on the floor and walk away with a major bruise at one point. It happened to me too, but I kind of started making everything legally right from the beginning. I had a very good friend that is also a lawyer that helped me in the beginning put things together in a legally safe way without charging the usual fees that are just like out of reach for a small label. You know, you can't invest like a couple $100 or $1,000 on a contract for a release with a sales expectation of a couple hundred vinyl. It just doesn't work. So you have to find a balance there. And I was lucky enough to know some people who helped me out there. So in many regards, this is how it works in the beginning. It's the same when you're starting a band, like you need to call on favors of friends, sometimes bands putting you on their show that already have an audience, or someone helping you out with artwork, and things like that. It's just normal. And this is what's so cool in this community, that people are willing to go that extra mile and help out people that they believe in and help them get to the next level. And then once they grow and start having an audience of their own, then they can call back on other favors. And it's a trade-off, and it's been like that as well. But yeah, it was a challenge, of course, making everything legally kind of proof from the beginning was a bit of a challenge. And I have had, fortunately, only very few experiences with bands where it got to the point that we were actually arguing over contracts. Most of the time, it's just a matter of communication and making sure that every aspect of your involvement, your mutual involvement in this relationship is clearly understood before you sign it, and that's really important. And that's why I think before you sign any deal, you should ask all the questions you have, and better ask twice and make sure everything is clearly understood. And if that's the case, then there won't be any arguments, because everyone's knowing what they're letting themselves in for. And a lot of the times when it leads to conflicts, it's just because people had a wrong interpretation of things or a wrong idea of things, and they weren't clearly discussed. And that is usually then both parties' fault, because both parties are involved in a contract. And
it's usually money. Everybody thinks that someone else is making more money when no one's making money. So
very true. Yeah.
So to wrap up the label side of things, give me a couple of bands that listeners might not know or might know a little bit about that you're expecting to blow the doors off of 2021, 2022, whenever we get back to live touring.
So we have a bunch of outstanding releases coming up this year. One that I'm particularly looking forward to is the new album of Crown, a French band that has already released 2 records on Candlelight, actually, and we signed them now for the new record. And it's totally mind-blowing. It's very different from anything they've done in the past. It's heavy, it's slow at the same time. There's elements of post-rock and post-metal and electronica. There's a thick Nine Inch Nails component in it. So it'll appeal to a lot of fans of different genres of music, and the production is just super overwhelming. It's like no shit, the best thing I've heard in a long time. And they spent 2 or 3 years working on that, and the outcome is just a spectacular album that I'm really looking forward to. They will be touring with Enslaved. That tour just got postponed, but it'll happen. So we'll all have a chance to see them live. I'm very much looking forward to that. And that record, titled "The End of All Things," is coming out in April. Bands to be aware of from last year that we already released, definitely Brickville, who released an amazing new record in early September, a band from Belgium, which always amazes me. Like, there's so much good stuff coming out of Belgium. We have Brickville, we have Psychonaut, another great release of last year. We have Bear from Belgium, so that's already 3 bands out of Belgium that released a new record last year through Pelagic. And yeah, the last Brickville record is just really awesome, and they're a sight to behold on stage. They wear ropes, which sounds really old, but it really works in their case. It's instrumental music, but it's not post-rock, it's heavy. It's really heavy instrumental music. And it's kind of like a ritual on stage. You know, they play for an hour, and all the songs kind of gradually flow into one another. And they wear these ropes and these golden masks, and there's like lots of fog on stage. And it's just a fucking ceremony, you know. And I watched them live the first time at Dunk Festival in Belgium, and they played during the afternoon on the main stage among a whole bunch of mellow post-rock bands. And I remember Paul and me were coming into the room, and we were like, they were playing this hypnotizing kind of like repetitive part, and we were like, oh, that's interesting, that's something different. And then it went like super heavy, and we were like, fuck, that was really unexpected to see a band like that at that festival. And yeah, that's definitely an album to check out. Came out in September, on the 25th of September last year.
So yeah, that's that all sounds fantastic. Any other bands you want to drop in before I ask you about Pelagic Fest?
What? Sorry, what's that?
Any other bands? Any other highlights from the upcoming releases before we move on?
Yep. So we've talked about Crown. We've talked about Arabrut coming up this year. We've talked about Brickville album last year, and Psychonaut, also from Belgium, who released this awesome record, Unfold the Godman. Really, really good band. That could also be something for Damnation, I think. Winky winky. And well, then we've had this Spook the Horses album drop in August. That's also a really great band from New Zealand, super heavy, very different from the previous record. They're really versatile musicians, and they explore a very wide musical territory within this one band. So the previous record, titled People Used to Live Here, was very quiet and mellow, kind of like Boren and the Club of Gore vibe, you know, like really dark and mellow. And the new record is super heavy. It's more in the vein of like Breach, New Roses, but also some more upbeat parts. And it's just a fucking great record. It's called Empty Body. Came out in August, and they will be coming over for Arctangent next year, if that happens. So that was one of my favorite records last year, actually. Spook the Horses, Empty Body. We've been listening to that up and down in the warehouse. We all love that record.
Yeah. And I'm right thinking Psychonaut, James at Arctangent's got Psychonaut booked in as well.
That's correct, and Brickville as well, and Bear as well. I think we have 8 Pelagic bands on the bill next year. That was supposed to happen in 2020, actually, and I'm kind of, on a personal note, happy that it didn't happen, because I was supposed to be in the US with the Ocean, so I couldn't have been at Arctangent to watch my 8 Pelagic bands. So hopefully, now that it got postponed, I have a chance to actually be there. Yeah,
well, I'm good friends with James. He's been on the podcast, and I'm an Arctangent fucking devotee, so I will be there.
Of course, that's the 2 festivals in the UK that are great. That's Damnation and Arctangent, right?
I appreciate you saying so. So talking about festivals, that's a nice link to, you had Pelagic Fest I noticed, I was looking back, the lineups are always fantastic, obviously the bands that are involved with the label, but it was 2018, it appeared to be the last time it happened. Was that the last one, or was you taking a break, or what's the situation there?
No, we will definitely do it again, but we've never done it consistently every year. Well, you will know that better than anyone, but building up a festival is so much fucking groundwork that needs to be done. And when you have a label festival with a limited roster, then we never wanted to do it every year, because it would either mean that we repeat putting the same bands on 2 years in a row, which we didn't want to do, or that we bring in a lot of bands that are not on the label. And so we decided to rather do it from time to time when we feel the time is right.
You've done a bit of how did you find the promoting? How did you find being a promoter and trying to sell tickets to bands that you know are fantastic, but people just won't come?
Yeah, a bit of a shit experience, but no, I did enjoy it. I mean, of course, we put a lot of idealism into it, and like I said before, I enjoy different aspects of being involved with music, not just playing in a band or being in a record label, but also promoting that festival was great, and I really enjoyed those days. But I also realized how much work it is, how much preparation work, and how much can go wrong also, you know. You learn and grow with your experiences and your failures, I guess. And yeah, it's definitely something I want to do again. And like I said, we have started looking at doing a Pelagic Fest that is not in Berlin. We want to do a Pelagic Fest in Oslo, because we have 5 Norwegian bands. And we also would like to do one in the Netherlands, which we've already started talks with venues. And I think this is the course for the next Pelagic Fest. It's likely not going to be in Berlin, because Berlin is a really cool city. I love living here. There's a great music scene, but there's not a whole lot of great venues. And the ones that we do have, they're owned by a person that makes having festivals, they're very complicated because of door policies. You know, like they won't let people in and out of the venue, because they're afraid that they might go to the shop to buy their beers, and just shitty policies, you know. And that's the part that I found the least enjoyable about promoting shows. It's like finding arrangements with venue owners, you know, and explaining to them why you need certain things, and them not understanding, and then you have to look for another place. And nothing is really ideal, because we don't have these venues like in the Netherlands that are built to be venues subsidized by the government, and, you know, just have awesome audio and lighting gear inside, and it's just like everything is fucking perfect. We don't have that. Like, most Berlin venues are either Turkish wedding halls that are cool, they have been, you know, like refurbished, and they have this ambience and charisma, but they were never built to be venues. And or just like small spaces in residential buildings with lots of compromises involved. And so that's been the biggest challenge for Pelagic Fest, finding a home, like finding a place where we feel like this is where we want to hold this, you know. And it's always been a compromise. Like the last one we did at Cassiopeia and Badehaus, that was such a place where everybody feels comfortable, great surroundings, you know, like outdoor area, cool stages and everything. But they're too small. Like, just the size of the room is just not big enough to do what we want to do. And then when you go to the bigger venues, you have all these compromises that you can't really operate a festival like you would like to run it. So this has been an ongoing struggle. And my friend and partner has kind of lost interest in it. So if we do another version, we'll be doing it with the new Pelagic team. And I think we can do that ourselves now as well. We have the experience of 3 Pelagic Fest and 2 times Friction Fest, which is where I think I cut off. That was the previous one that I did together with my friend. It was at Astra in Berlin and at Berghain. We did 2 editions, lost a lot of money, but had great lineups where we had the Black Heart Procession, Olafur Arnalds on Entombed, and the Ocean all play on the same stage on the same day. So very diverse. And that's how we started 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it all rings true. I share your pain with all these issues. I mean, Damnation's found its home. I mean, I do love Leeds University, but there's no escaping for the fact that our main stage is in a canteen. Our 4th stage is in a hall where people take exams. We need to build the stage in there. I can't get the canteen to close before noon on the day. Students are allowed access to the venue regardless of whether they've got a ticket or not. So they just kind of wander about the building. And it's just like, and that's the best option. There is nothing better. I mean, we've in England, you know, like, so I share your pain. There's nothing where you go to Roadburn and it's just the venues are just set up and it's like,
yeah,
have at it. It's big, beautiful venues where just access to the back and endless amounts of dressing rooms and great lights and that are all just in situ. And bands like Cult of Luna or the Ocean, you can just come in and be like, boom, we're just going to take this full rig and make it work. So I feel your pain as much as I feel like we do as much as we can do in the space of 24 hours in Leeds. And so let's say,
I think it's amazing that you made it work in this space, because I don't know any other festival that's happening at a university where what happens to me always, even after 5 times of playing there, is that I get lost because of all the aisles. Everything kind of looks the same, but it's so cool because it's such an odd scenario for a festival, you know, and you like it's really unique. And yeah, I think it's great that you made it work in this surrounding, which doesn't seem to be ideal, but fuck it, you have the stages, you have the spaces, and people come and they appreciate it, and I think that's really great.
There's a bizarre mix of some of the horrors and delights. You know, for a band, it's like some of the bands in the rider, they want some heating, a seats, a mirror, plug sockets, like stuff that might be difficult at a major festival in a field that Damnation's plentiful. It's like, you can have all the mirrors you like and seats and like make you comfortable. But then at the same time, it's like we also need to operate in this venue space where we have 20 minutes for changeovers, or the light can only, I mean, we can't get backdrops up and down without an absolute ball ache because there's no stage sides or the back, and just basic stuff that another festival would find very easy, we find very, very difficult because of the surroundings we're in. So let's talk about Damnation. As you say, you've no band has played it more times than the Ocean, which is odd considering you're based in Berlin and it's not like you're a band from Manchester or London.
Is that really true?
Yeah. So what you guys have played 4 times. You played in 2010, 2013, 2015, and then when you came back and you headlined. The 2 other bands in the world have also played 4 times, Anunnathrach and Raging Speedhorn, but no one's ever played 5 times. So there is you share that honour with the other 2, with Athrak and Speedhorn, but which, as I say, it makes it even more strange because those 2 bands are English bands, so they kind of they'd played a couple of times before the Ocean. They'd even played their first show at Damnation, if you know what I mean. So what do you let's go through, because no other band has played every single stage. I mean, you guys even played that horrible wee box room in 2010 that was only ever used that 1 year, if you remember. There wasn't even enough power to get the lights to work properly. So let's start there. Do you remember the first Damnation, how that day went?
That I remember that small, like, completely sweaty basement room where people couldn't get in or out. And yes, I remember there were some technical issues, which we unfortunately tend to have, especially on small stages, just because we bring out a lot of gear, and that is usually a challenge when there's not enough space. But it didn't matter. There was a super awesome vibe. Like, it was a good show. I have great memories of it. Like, you couldn't fucking breathe in that room. You couldn't see because there was so much fog everywhere, and it was just really intense. It was really intense. And I remember trying to watch another band from the back, and like nobody could even like get, you know, there was no square inch of space in there. And that's what creates a vibe, you know, when people can't escape. I love that. I love to confront people, like to physically confront people with my music. And when they can't get away, that's great, because then they're mine, you know.
It was funny because later that night you were stuffing your face with a slice of pizza, and I'd apologised to you later on to say, listen, sorry that stage was what it was. We never expected to have to use it. And you were like, you know what? I fucking loved it. I loved that whole, just the intensity of the fans right in your face as you're playing it, which you don't get. So then you came back and you played what is our second stage with Cult of Luna in 2013 and Stylish.
Yes, I think that was the next time. I was just trying to think. We didn't play with Dillinger Escape Plan because that tour was also in 2010, but I don't think we played Damnation that year. But I remember watching Dillinger at Damnation in that room, in that auditorium style room. But I don't think we.
You did.
Or,
So
or
you were
maybe
on
we
that
played
tour
the
with
same.
them. Yeah, you were on the tour.
Was that 2010?
2010. Yep.
Oh yeah, right.
And then you came back and you guys played in that auditorium style stage in 2013 when Cult of Luna were headlining.
Okay, so that was that year when we played that stage. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was cool. That room I really liked. That's really cool because it has this kind of like with a balcony going around. You know, there's always like a good vibe. You can see the stage from all different parts of the room, and there's always an intense mosh pit, but there's also like this nice balcony and backdrop of people watching from above. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
That's my favorite stage of all of them. That the way it's just set up, because it's a natural venue.
Yeah.
So you might not know this, but you guys came back in 2015 and played the main stage. And I'm going to try and pronounce the singer's name, Loic. Yep, right. He jumped off the balcony. The only artist in all the years of Damnation has ever jumped off that balcony. And the venue management lost their minds. They hunted me down. They hunted Paul down. They were trying to get the festival stopped. It was fucking. I've never seen the venue so angry because they're a university basically. They don't really. In the grand scheme of things, they're not that worried about Damnation as an event. They're worried about their reputation as a university. So were you aware at any point when he was going up to climbing that balcony that might be an issue, or were you lost in the music, or what was your recollection of that? Or does he do it every night and you don't even remember?
No, I do remember. Loic does that. He does that a lot. Like he likes to jump off things. I think he initially picked that up in 2010 when we toured with Dillinger, and he was watching them perform every night, not giving a fuck. And he really was infested by Greg Puciato's energy, I think, and he somehow took that up. So it wasn't like a rare occasion. He likes to do that. He likes to climb things and jump from things into the crowd, and it's part of his way of interacting with the crowd. We are in the end a hardcore band, that's our background. That's where we come from. Although the music that we play may be entirely different these days, we grew up in that scene and we like that. Like I said before, that basement style energy, that means being close to people. It involves stage diving, it involves physical contact, which is hard to imagine these days, but this has always been an integral part of our show. And so it's not something that we think about or that we plan. It's not that he always does that in a certain moment or something like that. It's just something that happens. So we weren't discussing that before thinking about that. It happened, and no one of us was aware that it would be an issue. The only other time ever when it was an issue was in the US, and it was also on a tour with Dillinger. We did 2 tours with them, actually. We did one full European and one full US tour. And there, the whole situation with insurance and liability in venues is a lot more strict than we know it from Europe, where most of the time it's not an issue. So in the US, we had that problem before, that it was really causing issues, but we were not aware, and I'm really sorry for putting you in trouble there. And that was obviously not our intention, not Loic's intention. And I told him afterwards, like after we spoke, I was like, dude, like fuck this. This was problematic. You should think twice before you do that. And he was just like, he looked at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I understand because,
the fan in me loved it. I mean, at the end of the day, I've jumped off many a speaker stack in the top of bits of tents, and I love it. I mean, we're 7 years in. I'm good that it happened, and I'm glad there's people get videos of it. People remember that bit of the Ocean show. It's great, but the promoter in you on that day, when people who own the venue are saying they're going to pull the plug, you're a bit like shit, because then you guys came back 2 years ago to headline the third day, the Riley Smith Hall. Now that hall has got a balcony, which is about another 10 foot higher. And the fear was, if he finds a way to get up on top of that, he's going to fucking kill someone. So what was the, do you remember that one? And was there any discussion about him trying to jump off that?
I do remember there was a balcony, but like I said, we don't really discuss these things beforehand or make a plan. It's if it happens, then it's something that happens spontaneously out of the energy of the show. Yeah. So it's not that we do a briefing before that and like any Luik says, "Oh, I should jump off that balcony." That would be fucking weird, No, it's like if the vibe is right and he feels it, and he has drank the right amount of booze and just gets the feedback, then he does things that we don't control, and I don't want to. Like that's his realm, that's his way of connecting with the crowd, whatever he does, and it's nothing that will be discussed or anything like that. So I don't know. I'm happy you had us back. I was afraid after that first time, the issues it caused, you guys would have had enough of the ocean, but you didn't. And thanks a lot for that.
No, never. It's been great to have you back, and I feel it's been great to see that as well, that progression for the band. Not that Damnation played any part in it, but the fact that to see you guys come into the UK and be in that tiny sweatbox in 2010. And then come back and headline a stage or play the main stage. I mean, the Ocean were arguably a wee bit too big in the UK, or at Damnation now, our fan base for that room, because there's more people wanted in, a lot more people wanted in than could get in. But at the same time, you're a bit like, well, what's going to be more special? Going to see the Ocean play for an hour and 10 minutes in this room, or getting another set on the main stage sort of halfway up the day? And I felt we got most of the fans in by the time it was done, and didn't really get a lot.
No, it was good. It was a good choice. I really liked that last show we did. Was really nice. That room is awesome. It's like really cool size. Sound and stage are great, and that was good to play that last rather than an earlier slot on the main stage, which we had already done anyway. So like I'm glad we ended up there. That was really cool. And I think you guys definitely played a role in building up the profile of this band in the UK. I mean, like Damnation is a festival that any fan of this type of music scene from England will come to, and so people have seen us there 2, 3, 4, or 5 times, and they keep coming back. So this has definitely built us up in the UK, and we're very grateful for that. And especially also because there are not so many other festivals, that put on bands like us, and we've never played Bloodstock or anything like that. But I think that's also just really commercial and like much bigger. So like a band like us relies and needs a festival like Damnation to get out of the mud, and to play to an audience. And you guys have given us that chance repeatedly, and that definitely has helped us grow as a band, and we're really thankful for that.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. When you show up at a festival like Damnation or at Tangency, do you feel that the crowd, what would you say the split is in the crowd to the people who know exactly who you are and are there because they're Ocean fans and will be there in Leeds or Bristol regardless of the festival, and then the split of the fans that are coming to check you out, you feel you're getting people come up to you in the merch stall afterwards and say that I didn't know who you are, but fucking that was great, and can I buy a record?
There's always both, and obviously it's changed over the 5 performances we've done there. The first time nobody knew who we were, and the last time we played, I think we had a solid audience, of people who have seen us before and who knew who we are. But it's like that with any festival, the great thing about festivals is that you're essentially playing to people who would otherwise never come to your shows, and that's it's of course the shows are better when people know the band and they're involved, they know the lyrics and everything, and you will always have that core of people, but you'll always have like a huge group of people that maybe have heard of the band before but haven't seen them live, and that just come out of curiosity, and then if you do it right, you'll take them home with you, and that's what festivals that size are all about. And I think by now we have a really solid audience that not only knows who we are, but buys our records and knows the albums and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll wrap this up, and thank you for sticking with me through all the IT problems and cutting out, cutting back in, and so on. The tours. So you'd mentioned earlier about the tours and you getting bands for your label on. Really, I love a tour like that. I like a tour that's been put together in a clever package and it makes sense, and it's not just 2 local support bands been fired on the bill with Napalm Death because Napalm Death can't be bothered after 40 years trying to find support bands to take it. So tell me how you've got PG Lost, Hypnose, Svalbard, and I mean, amazing support lineup for the tour that was going to be January, which you now hope is going to be summer. Firstly, how did that package get put together? What part do you play in it?
Well, like I mentioned before, of course, we take the chances that we have in choosing our support bands. Like, we want to bring out a package that is musically interesting and diverse, and not just, nobody wants to see the same band 4 times in a row on an evening, you know. So we always bring out bands that are, of course, connected, where there's like overlapping elements between them, but that are not just entirely congruent, you know. And then, of course, I usually like to take out pelagic bands when I can. That's not a must. Svalbard are not a pelagic band. They're great. They fit on the package really well, and there's a good buzz around them at the moment with the last record, which is brilliant. So it's not always that we just take out pelagic bands, but here 3 out of the 4 bands are pelagic bands. So it's like different considerations. I discuss with Hayden a lot, obviously. And you know, everyone has different opinions on how and how to do this and who we should bring out, and then we bring everything together and discuss it, and in the end there's decisions being made. And I'm very happy with this package. I think it's really, really strong. I'm a big fan of PG Lost. I've been wanting to do a tour with them for a long time. They are, for me personally, the most exciting post-rock band out there these days. Next to Mono, and that's not just because they're pelagic bands, but PG Lost are phenomenal. And the last record, Oscillate, which came out in November, was one of my personal highlights of the year. I didn't mention that earlier, but that record is just really outstanding. And it's one of those bands that just sounds amazing wherever they play. They always they're always extremely clear and tight, and everything is in the right place, you know, and it's amazing watching them. So very excited about bringing them out. And Hypnose is also a band we've toured with already 10 years ago. This is how I got to know them. They supported us in France, or maybe we supported them in the south of France. And they have a really cinematic live show with video projections and lots of attention to lighting and presentation, much like the Ocean, and really epic, heavier and more metal than PG Lost, but they also have the spheric and instrumental and atmospheric parts. So there's like these certain elements that all of these bands have, but that they interpret and approach from different angles. And, you know, this is what makes it interesting. I think we want to bring out a package where everything makes sense, but also everything is different, and every band has their own idiosyncratic approach to how they do things, you know. And I think this package, it's really the case for that package. So we're stoked about coming out with that, and fingers crossed it can happen in June. We've already had to postpone once, but obviously that's out of our hands. Vaccinations have started in Germany, but it's going slow, and I don't know. Hope dies last, you know. But of course, I have second thoughts now. And if it has to be postponed again, then it will have to go into 2022. Just because next year is already completely full. The fall is already like a clusterfuck of shows and tours going out. And after this, all this bullshit is over with Corona, you know, there's going to be hundreds and thousands of bands that all want to release records and tour all at the same time. And yes, people will be starved for live music, absolutely, but they also won't have unlimited funds to see a show every night of the week, you know. So I think the fall is just going to be a disaster. And if the tour in June doesn't happen, then we'll go into 2022. But this tour will happen sooner or later. And fingers crossed it can happen in June. That's all I can say right now.
That was going to be my question, especially for the UK listeners, which is the vast majority of the Damnation Versus listeners, who are desperate to see this package or desperate to see the Ocean, would be, okay, there's Roadburn has now fallen for next year. I think I heard someone say earlier, Netherlands Death Fest is now gone for, not this year, this year. I keep thinking we're still in 2020. But it seems to be the vibe we're getting for these events now is like, okay, we're done with just knocking these on. There's going to be a fresh event for 2022 because there's only so long you can continue to keep trying to postpone people's ideas. But you're quite confident you can get this tour into 2022 as it is, if that's what needs to happen.
Yes, I am confident that everyone involved wants this tour to happen, and of course, like 2 years is a long time. You know, things happen in between, and we can't know for sure if we'll all be alive by then. But we all know that we want to do this tour with this package, and if it has to be postponed again, it will be postponed again. But for the moment, we have our hopes up that June can realistically still happen.
See, for bands like yourself, because what's going to happen, I assume, is you're going to have different territories are going to just deal with this better or worse. You're going to have maybe France will be fantastic and the vaccination will get rolled out very quickly, and the UK will be terrible, or vice versa. Is there any sort of plan B with like yourself, management, Hayden, to be like, right, okay, is there areas where we might just... I say Germany knocks it out the park. Is there any scope, not for this package, but I'm just talking about for the Ocean and yourself as an artist, is there scope then looking into the fall saying, right, we can make something happen in Germany alone? Or is it just, is all or nothing?
No, it's not. Obviously, it's complicated because it's going to be a bus tour. And the logistics of that are complicated because a bus costs a lot of money every day. And if like in the middle of the tour, there's holes that cannot be filled on short notice because certain countries are impossible to do, then that will endanger the tour as a whole. Yeah. However, in the business or in the industry understands that these are special times that require activity. And so the bus companies do understand that. So it might be possible, like from our end, if we can do 5 shows, then cannot do 3 shows, then can do another 5 shows, and we can make arrangements that you know, we can cut the costs for these shows that cannot happen, then we're willing to make that work. It depends not only on us, but obviously on a lot of people involved, and you know, there's crew as well, and the problem is just like a couple of days of idleness cause issues for everyone because costs are just being produced and you can't just like put them on standby, you know. But we will try to make it work. I mean, obviously playing some German dates would be the easiest to do because we're based here. We can just go out and come back. But yeah, we really have to assess the situation when we get a little closer to it. And if there are going to be a lot of individual cancellations, then yes, that will endanger the tour as a whole. But then we will still try to make at least you know, like certain shows that can work as a block with that bigger tour. We'll try to make that work.
Yeah. Okay. Final question then. You took a decision to release what was an absolutely incredible album in the middle of the pandemic. Looking back now, do you feel that was a good decision, or have you felt frustrated since in the fact that you've got this incredible music that you can't take to fans? Or I mean, what's your feelings on releasing that album, and here we are now still talking to folk through Zoom calls?
Well, we've controversially discussed whether we should proceed with the release in September, knowing that we won't be able to immediately with, and we decided to do it just because the album was ready, and when an album is ready, you want it out there. You don't want it collecting dust on a hard drive. You want people to hear it. Obviously, there was a strong, maybe not entirely rational, but strong motivator to release in September. But also, I felt that it's a good time to release music because people are sitting bored at home and they're hungry for music. And we've seen that with Pelagic throughout the year, that we've been getting a lot more attention than we would have normally gotten on a lot of releases, just because people spend more time on social media. They have time to check out bands. They don't go out to drink and to gigs. So they spend time on their phones finding music and listening to music. So it was generally, I think, a good year to release music. And although it's weird to not be able to instantly tour when a record comes out, I think it was a good decision to do it. And now we're just in this mindset where the album is out. we haven't properly started rehearsing it just because there's no opportunities for touring right now. But we will start doing that this year also because we simply really want to play music together again. It's that wouldn't have been possible last year. Our bass player lives in Stockholm. Loic lives in Switzerland, and also just the rehearsal logistics for the Ocean are a bit complicated. You know, we can't just spontaneously get together and drink a few beers and play. But we decided that we really want to do that this year. We want to rehearse and play the record, and maybe do what everyone has already done, which is a live stream. But you know, I think there's still interesting approaches to that we would like to explore, and we have to prepare for the tour in June anyways, whether it happens or not. So yes, we're looking forward to just getting together and play music in a room with people, and that's on the cards for the spring, and we're very much looking forward to that. But yeah, to answer your question, looking back at it, no, I have no regrets. It's good that we released the record. It was ready. We wanted it out. The reception has been overwhelming, and really, really good. And I think we probably reached a whole bunch of people, although we didn't tour, because of this weird fucking year where everyone is sitting home and checking out things they otherwise wouldn't check out, you know. So from that angle, I think it was good. And also the fact that we had to stay home all year resulted in a bunch of extra time. I have already written a new Ocean record that's kind of ready to be recorded in the last 2 months, and we're also going to start looking into that this year. There's actually an album and an EP ready to go, and we haven't decided yet what we will do with it. We may release it as a double record. We're probably not going to release it this year, but it's all there, and I'm very excited about starting to work on that as well. So yeah, it's been, you know, we haven't been sitting still this year. We've done so much stuff, and I'm also kind of thankful that we had this extra time because of COVID to do certain things the right way, which otherwise we simply wouldn't have had the time to do it. The release was very challenging. All the packaging was extremely difficult to make work, and if it wasn't for COVID-19, then we wouldn't have had the time to release this 130 pages photo book documenting all the 2019 Phanerozoic tours. And like, there's a lot of projects that we decided to do just because we couldn't tour. Yeah. And in the end, I'm happy that that we have these things, because it's cool. It's good stuff, you know. And I said no to that last January, but then when Corona struck, I was like, okay, fuck, let's do this now. Let's look into this. And with Pelagic as well, we had a lot more time to put into the label, to properly building it up and growing our team last year. And all that is because the world was put on pause for the year, and that also was a chance for us in many ways. So I'm not complaining. I think it was a good year for the Ocean and for Pelagic.
Yeah, well, first point is I fully agree with the album releases. I personally, I've got 20 new favourite bands that I would never have got to. I've got a 95 job. I'm a journalist. I've got a 95 job where I can't listen to any music. And when I come home, I've got 3 children. So my music time, I need to decide, am I going to switch off Amun Ra, Cult of Luna, the Ocean, to go and find this band that I don't even know is good yet or not? Whereas the last year, I've just sat with Spotify listening to everything that's been recommended to me. And the amount of great new bands I've come across it's been unbelievable. And there must be thousands more like me who have managed to find the Ocean because they had that time and they were able to just go and listen to the band. So I agree that a lot more people did listen, and I hope that your fan base did grow a lot with that. The other point you were making, which I'm hoping I picked up right, you said you already have the next album now in the can. And is yes. That a Damnation Versus exclusive?
Yeah, you can you can treat it like that. Yeah, good. I haven't told anyone yet. I've been secretly working on that together with Peter, our synth guy, the last couple of weeks, and yeah, I'm very excited about starting that.
Great. And okay, well that one nugget alone makes up for all the IT issues we've had with this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I look forward to having you back at Damnation to crack that record and hold the crown all by yourselves. And all the best to you and your family, and stay safe, big chap, okay?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite, and great chatting with you, man.
Cheers, mate.